Let's go on. So it's been a bad couple of weeks for the Lancet. The Lancet, if you don't know what it is, it's I think it's Britain's or the world's, possibly the world's oldest medical journal. It started in 1823. It's always been a bastion. It's been one of those totems of free debate and discussion and scientific progress and research that you can completely trust. Except you can't. It's been it's been behind a few scandals, and two of them have come in like the last week. So if we scroll down here, this was the last issue's cover. So it says, historically, the anatomy and physiology of bodies with vaginas have been neglected.
Bodies with vaginas.
Bodies with. Do you know what they're talking about when they say bodies with vaginas?
Women.
They could. I mean, like 5 years ago, they would have just said women.
I love how inhumane that sounds. I mean, it sounds like corpses again.
Oh.
You know, like the phrase black and brown bodies.
Yeah, no,
Bodies with
vaginas.
vaginas.
It's like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho is writing for the Lancet.
Like it could be a series of bodies with the heads cut off, and it would still be a correct statement there.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it manages to be transphobic and misogynist at the same time, which is something I've been striving to do in my work. But yeah, the Lancet has actually done it. So yeah, physiology of bodies with vaginas. They do, of course, mean women. Although obviously now, you know, it's 2021. We've got transgender women who, you know, have penises.
Currently at Labour Party conference, I think Cervixgate has taken a little.
Oh yeah, or cervixes. I don't know whether you say cervix. What even is a cervix? You know, I mean, I thought it was something that you had to replace on a motherboard. But I don't know why they can't. At least the Lancet are saying everybody knows what a vagina is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, maybe not everybody, but I think a lot of people do. And there's been a lot of criticism from feminists or TERFs, as they'd probably be called, trans exclusionary radical feminists. Just anybody who questions all this,
being that they don't think chicks with dicks are.
Yeah, and they're just saying it's dehumanizing women to bodies with vaginas, which is it's probably how Jimmy Savile saw them. And yeah, there's been other. So yeah, here's a doctor. So yeah, talking about the political erasure of women. Particularly when they're talking about particularly when they're talking about the historic erasure of women. Like to continue it now with different verbiage is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And also, it kind of the Lancet has been for ages been talking about the marginalisation of women and of trans people, which is true. Historically, women, trans people in particular, have been marginalised, but they haven't spoken about the marginalisation of detransition people, and this is a growing number of people who transition and then want to transition back. And obviously, if you've been through the surgery, it can be very difficult because women transition to men. What was interesting to me, I thought most trans people would be male to female, because I guess they're the most visible ones. Apparently, as many as like 2/3 or 3/4 are female to male. But they pass much more easily than some 6'5" bloke with hands like shovels.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, but then it's very difficult for them to detransition because they've had surgery to have their breast reduction. Some have had bottom surgery to either give them a penis or remove the penis and give them a vagina. So it can be very difficult to detransition. So yeah, the Lancet issued an apology. Dear readers, we're sorry we got caught. And we didn't realize we were being deeply misogynist and slightly transphobic when we were being deeply misogynist.
Oh, God, block of text.
Slightly transphobic, yeah. So you know when somebody has that, they can't just fit it in a tweet. They've got to like actually put it in a big long thing like this. So yeah, they gave their apologies. So that was bad for the Lancet. And I think for a scientific publication, science shouldn't politicize the science. If you're a medical journal, just steer clear from the politics, because this is something for society to debate. Science should just deal with things that can be measured and verified, which brings us on to the big cover up at the Lancet, the thing that's really blowing a hole in below the waterline. The Lancet, originally when coronavirus emerged, there was the lab leak theory, which was espoused by President Trump, and seemed to make sense. I mean, it seemed to make sense, seemed to be plausible that it could have leaked from a lab, given that Wuhan contains the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is a bioweapons
studies on coronavirus,
doing studies on viruses. And there's been leaks from it before, and it made sense. I mean, one theory that was put forward in the New York Post was that researchers at the lab, so they test the viruses on the animals, then the animals die or are killed, and then instead of incinerating them, which is pretty good practice, if you've got a monkey with like turbo AIDS, you don't want to then eat that monkey, because you might get the turbo AIDS. So that would make sense to me. But they were like, well, wait a minute. I'm only getting paid like, so many, whatever they use as the currency in China, yuan. I have no idea. Anyway, they're like, I'm not getting paid enough, so I'm going to sell these dead monkeys that are, absolutely hoaching, absolutely riddled with turbo AIDS. I'm going to take them down to the wet market and sell them to people. And the wet markets in China, it's not like when you go to the shops here and there's just like fish fingers. Man, there's like anything that moves. So these are bats at the wet market, which is where coronavirus originally coronavirus apparently, because bats because they live in such tight colonies, they've got incredibly powerful immune systems. They are breeding grounds for really powerful viruses. So a lot of viruses come from bats originally, and the idea was that a bat shat in a pangolin, and the pangolin ate it, sneezed into a wildebeest, and then somebody shagged the wildebeest or whatever it was. Anyway, turns out that might be bollocks, because you'd expect several vectors into the human population with that if it came from the natural world, and that sort of gives credence to the lab leak theory. So this is when we've got more pictures of stuff that's at the wet market. So these are possibly dogs, and everybody bought a dog during lockdown. Now they're like, oh man, I've got to go back to the office. I can't walk this thing. Probably going to end up here. The next one is, I think this is more dogs. These have been smoked with barbecue sauce. Can be served with a Greek side salad. These are pangolins. You can see the scaly tails. And the next slide is not a picture of, So that's, the idea is that the researchers, there's one idea for it escaping from the lab was the researchers were selling animals down at the wet market, which is pretty crazy. That's not what you should be doing with animals that have been infected with coronavirus. But there have been previous lab leaks in China. So in 1977, the Spanish flu virus re-emerged in China and Russia. And bear in mind, this flu virus killed 100 million people I think it was about a century ago. So it took 3 decades for this to be recognized as a lab leak. So previously, people thought that this re-emerged somehow in the natural world, and there was another lab leak or a series of lab leaks in 2004. So the SARS, which is similar to coronavirus. So 8 people were infected with this 2002 SARS-CoV virus after it escaped on 2 separate occasions from a laboratory at the Chinese Institute of Virology in Beijing. And this is a virus that previously killed 800 people. I don't know why it didn't kill more. So yeah, and the WHO only visited the Wuhan lab once. And their report omitted any mention of the laboratory and its experimentation with bat-borne coronaviruses. And there have been previous criticisms of the way Chinese labs are run. So a news conference in Manila, April 25th, 2004, sitting on a big brown envelope, because it's Manila, hey? The regional director for the World Health Organization, Shigeru Omi, Japanese guy, criticized the laboratory's safeguards and declared that safety was a serious issue that has to be addressed. And even in China, concerns around domestic laboratory safety standards remain present, with a 2015 opinion piece on in the Chinese government-owned newspaper. So if the Chinese government itself is saying it, that's quite a big thing. Normally, they like to cover this stuff up. So the Chinese government-owned paper noted that the government would have to tighten supervision and monitoring of research on dangerous and exotic pathogens and strengthen the management of the facilities where such research is carried out. And in fact, I don't think we've got a picture of it, but after coronavirus came out, an email went round, or a memo went round Chinese labs, warning them to tighten up the handling of pathogens and also the handling of the animals that they're tested on. Which again, all gives credit to the lab leak theory. Obviously, China didn't want people to think it came from the lab. It wanted them to think that it just came from nature. So their propaganda machine went into overdrive, and the cover-up has to be seen in the context of Chinese propaganda, which is incredibly sophisticated and powerful and well-funded, and they've been doing it for decades on their own people, so they know what they're doing. And now they're reaching out and doing propaganda overseas to sway the minds of people in the West, like you and me. So they're directing it at the West. I mean, obviously they can't do things. I mean, in China, your internet's restricted. You can't, if you mention Tiananmen Square and on the internet in China, you're getting a visit from the stormtroopers. But yeah, they're undermining our institutions, such as the BBC. They use false websites and fake accounts to spread lies, and they even pay social media and YouTube stars. So here we go, Beijing funding British YouTubers to further its propaganda war. So I mean, he doesn't look like. I mean, I don't know who he's convincing. But I actually know somebody who's been caught up in this. So the next tab is Nigel Ng. So this is Nigel Ng, a Malaysian comedian. He's brilliant, by the way, brilliant live comedian. But he does this Uncle Roger character, which I'm not such a fan of. If you get a chance to see him live, go see him live. But his Uncle Roger stuff is just, he's blown up to super. He's got millions of followers on social media. He basically puts on this sort of, he pretends to be Uncle Roger.
Uncle Roger, and he just complains about the way like Western people make rice. Or something like that.
100% of the videos are him complaining about how Western people make rice.
It's a funny joke, so I'll give him that. Like, I'm not criticizing the joke.
It's not a funny joke. It's
Nigel's
he's such a great comedian. But I mean, man, he's buying yachts and stuff now. So who's to say what he should be doing? But he collaborated with a New York-based other internet food guy who'd criticized the Chinese government. I don't know if he's a Chinese expat or exile or second generation, but so this guy based in New York is is of sort of Chinese origin. And Nigel collaborated with them. The Chinese government stepped in and were like, what are you doing? And so the video was taken down. Nigel, condemned Mike Chen, the guy who'd been critical of the Chinese government, and yeah, like, it just shows the sort of the power of the Chinese government. It's such a huge market, because as we'll see on the next tab, it's such a huge market. People want access to it, and so John Cena from the Fast and the Furious, he said Taiwan is a country. And Taiwan is a country, but it's also a country that China wants to take over, like it's done with Tibet. It wants to occupy it. And Taiwan, democratic, hugely successful free market economy. China wants to, take it over, and it's rattling a lot of sabers. There's a big military build-up. It's probably going to happen at some point, and this is something that should worry us, because Taiwan's a democratic country. So John Cena described Taiwan as a country. Then, after the Chinese government intervened and presumably said to the Fast and Furious people, if you want your films to be shown in China, you better start saying Taiwan, the country, is not a country. You better start saying that down is up, black is white. This is the Orwellian nature of communism. So John Cena came out and said, yeah, sorry, Taiwan, yeah, it's not a country. It's not a country.
He also said it in Mandarin.
And he said it in Mandarin. Which, yeah. And then you can actually hear the electrodes being unclipped from his testicles at the end. So I mean, this is the level of soft power and hard power, I guess, and medium power that China has. So they've pulled out all the stops with coronavirus. They've underreported deaths. They've spread misinformation. They censored healthcare workers. The doctor Li Wenlang, one of the first people to know what coronavirus was, he blew the whistle about coronavirus. What he did was he messaged fellow doctors saying you should wear a protective environment because there's this new virus going around. We don't know what it is. Which is good advice. That's basically government advice. And he was pulled in front of the various boards, and he was censored. And he later died from coronavirus, despite being 34, which seemed slightly fishy to me. He was summoned in front of the Public Security Bureau, which sounds very Orwellian, and he had to sign a letter. And in the letter, he's accused of making false comments that had severely disturbed the social order. And he was one of 8 people who police said were being investigated for spreading rumours. He later died. And Chinese propaganda has been saying that coronavirus actually originated in the US Army in Maryland. So, I mean, the whole world was coming down on Trump for saying it could have leaked from a weapons lab. It could have leaked from the virology lab in Wuhan. I mean, that makes a lot more sense than it leaking from a US Army.
This is also the reason he came up with the term China virus and started making sure he said that all the time.
Yeah.
Was because they alleged it came from the US.
Yeah.
It was not because he was bored, although it is funny. But also he did it because of this.
And it's not because it's racist. We've traditionally named viruses after the place where the first...
Don't want to waste my time with that kind of argument.
Yeah, like the Spanish flu. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh, why are you being racist against Spanish people? I'm not. It's just...
Because they're Spaniards. Why else?
Yeah. But although, I mean, in fairness, most of these things, when you get the Kent variant or whatever, it tends to just highlight places that have really good testing and really good laboratories because they discover it first rather than it originating there.
The Russian flu coming from China.
Yeah, exactly. So the Chinese propaganda reached as far as the Lancet. This is supposed to be an untouchable scientific publication. So on the next tab, it'll be the tab after that. So on the next tab, we've got, this is the Lancet published this letter decrying the conspiracy theories that stated that the virus could have originated in a Chinese lab. It says, and I quote, "The rapid, open and transparent sharing of data on this outbreak is now being threatened by rumours and misinformation around its origins. We stand together to strongly condemn conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin." So from a lab. And they also said, "We declare no competing interests." Well,
I can see a name right there. Peter
Daszak. And in fact, 26 of the 27 scientists who signed this letter had links to the weapons lab. By links, I mean they're all, getting new Mercedes. 26 of the 27 scientists linked to the lab. The absolute conflict of interest there. Daszak, who was the lead on this letter, is a long-time collaborator with the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the director there, Shi Zhengli, and Peter has continuously refuted claims that COVID-19 was the product of an experiment. Shi from the Wuhan Institute of Virology has been involved in performing gain-of-function research, which is a controversial practice among virologists involving the introduction of mutations to a virus that could potentially infect humans or animals with the goal to make it either more transmissible, lethal, and or pathogenic for humans. So basically making bioweapons. And you can see on the next tab, the Twitter tab, if we've got it, you can see. So this is a tweet from Peter Daszak, just showing he's he doesn't just collaborate; he's best mates with these people. Joking with them about a party in a bat cave, and leaked emails from Daszak showed that he urged his colleagues at EcoHealth Alliance to sign and circulate the Lancet statement among. So he urged eminent scientists to do this. And Daszak also explained that he had drafted the statement with a careful formulation meant to avoid the appearance of a political statement. So, the idea was that instead of being a sort of prepared statement that they're signing up to, this just originated organically from the scientific community and his colleagues. And not only that, but Daszak actively discouraged certain scientists from taking part. So Ralph S. Barrick is notable here because Peter Daszak sent an email to him saying, "No need for you to sign the statement, Ralph." And it was decided that certain key figures should be omitted from the letter for strategic purposes. So yeah, this is a total cover-up. And the information of the involvement with the Institute came after Peter Daszak was removed from the United Nations Commission investigating the origins of coronavirus. And also the whistleblower, Ralph, who was dissuaded from there he is there. That's, man, have you ever seen anybody look more like a scientist in your life? That's like my dream. If I ever get heart disease or something, that is my dream. I want a guy looking like that. I trust that guy. I trust that guy. I like how he's wearing gloves before he gives me the anal probe. I respect that. So he expressed doubts. So he helped draft the Lancet letter. He was involved in it. I think he was the one scientist who didn't have links to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So he expressed doubts about the virus's origin. And in January 2021, he stated the coronavirus's hypothetical emergence from a strong animal reservoir would have been accompanied by multiple introduction events rather than a single outbreak. So, that suggests that it could have come from a lab rather than from the animal reservoir, which, is from nature. And then Science magazine dropped the bombshell. 18 prominent scientists criticized Daszak and the World Health Organization's investigation and called for a transparent and objective investigation into COVID-19's origins and declared solidarity with the declarations made by the European Union, the United States and 13 other countries, and asking for greater clarity about the origins of this pandemic. And what's interesting about this is where science became politicized. I heard a scientist being interviewed on the BBC World Service, and he was talking about how the scientific community, because Trump had come out and championed the lab leak theory, they said that they discredited it because they didn't want to be seen to be aligned with Trump. But that's partisan politics. That's not science. Even if Trump was espousing the theory for the wrong reasons, he could very well have been right. And we can't discredit the theory just because Trump likes it. And this isn't the first time the Lancet have got in trouble for being wrong about something and creating a scare. So the Lancet were behind the original MMR scare. So this is back in 1998. This started the whole, the mainstream anti-vaccine movement. So Dr. Andrew Wakefield said there was a link between the MMR vaccine, which treats measles, mumps, and rubella, and autism. And he was, and this was published in the Lancet. And he was later revealed, Dr. Andrew Wakefield, I think we've got a picture of him on the next tab. There he is there at a rally. He's always with quite glamorous women, by the way. There's obviously, women find anti-vax guys attractive. But turned out that Wakefield had fabricated events about taking blood from children. So he lied about the procedures he went through. And he also had a huge conflict of interest. His research was secretly funded by personal injury lawyers whose clients were suing MMR vaccine makers. So there's a huge incentive for him, financial incentive for him to sort of discredit MMR vaccine, and this had huge ramifications. I mean, it was believed by loads of people. It led to the uptake of the MMR vaccine dipping below 80%. And measles, mumps, and rubella, these are diseases that used to kill loads of people, and his actions probably led to children dying, because obviously it's that herd immunity. It's not just about protecting the healthy children, but there's children with compromised immune systems and whatever. So it led to Andrew Wakefield being struck off, and he's no longer a doctor. He is no longer a doctor. So yeah, the Lancet. I don't know. I just think they've really sort of blown a hole in their own credibility. Science shouldn't be politicized. Science should always be something that's just logical and rational, and you test the hypothesis. You can repeat the test, and it doesn't matter if Trump says it's a bad idea or a good idea. You just do the tests and follow the science. It just shows how when the Democrats say we're following the science, you're not. You're following the politics and the science. And the politics leads the science as much as the science leads the politics. And interestingly, I just thought I'd finish on this. Sorry if I've overrun a bit, but I was actually in Wuhan on the 31st of October 2019. So this is from Google Timeline. Shows where I was. So I had when was it? From 1648. I landed. And I didn't leave until 7 minutes past 10 at night. So I was there. Yeah, I don't know.
So you're the one to blame.
Yeah, so basically, I always try. First thing I do when I land in a new country is I go and shag a pangolin. So, or stick a bat up my arse. So yeah, that could have been me.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go over to lotuseaters.com to subscribe to get access to all the premium content we have.
The way the site works is that you have bronze, silver and gold tier subscriptions. The bronze being £5 a month and allows you to get access to all of the premium content and leave comments on the articles. And we've got a new feature for the silver tier, and the silver and gold tier, which is having all of the premium articles accompanied by an audio track of a very smooth British voice reading, as you can see on the screen there. It's only an 11-minute listen, or it's however long it takes you to read the article. So that's for convenience. So that's for gold and silver members. And we've also got all of our regular great content, which we're all really proud of. I mean, the premium podcast we have here is Progressing to Destruction, where that's just a lot of work, where it went into examining exactly what the consequences of mass immigration have been in Britain. And this was a great deal of effort to put together, and we didn't really want it being taken down from YouTube or anywhere else, so we're hosting it on our site, and we're very pleased with, well, what is, I suppose, a bit of a negative response, but not because of anything we've done, but because of the facts of the matter, it seems. But we also do various other premium podcasts, like The Contemplations, such as Are There Human Rights? Well, it depends on whose definition of what a human right you are using is. And of course, we do our regular history podcast called Epochs. This week's was The Sea People, the Terror of the Bronze Age. I really enjoyed doing this one because there was a great collapse about 3,000 years ago of the entire economy of the Eastern Mediterranean, and it seems that a bunch of piratical raiders may have been partially responsible for that, and possibly inspired the Trojan cycle from Homer. So we discussed that in that. And of course, we do our book club. For some reason, I decided that we'd highlight the George Orwell ones that we've been doing. So we've got his Road to Wigan Pier, and of course, the classic 1984. And I'll probably do Shooting an Elephant next. Have you ever read that?
Not heard of it.
It's really interesting. It's about George Orwell's time as a colonial administrator and police officer in Burma. And at one point in his narrative, an elephant goes on the rampage in a village and is killing people and destroying houses. So he has to go down and shoot it. And it is an absolutely fascinating look at the sort of colonial dynamics. The reason I haven't done a book club this month so far is because I'm currently going through the Critical Race Theory Bible. As you can see, it's 500 pages long, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through. And there are going to be many very in-depth book clubs coming out of that, because the things they believe are crazy and conservatives need to know about them.
But anyway, if you'd like access to all that premium content, please go over to lotuseaters.com, subscribe. Thank you.